sea heaved like an angry beast as Captain Edward Mackenzie stepped onto the shore of an uncharted island, shrouded in mists and myths. For centuries, pirates and treasure seekers had whispered about the Lost Cove, a place where, according to legend, a treasure was hidden, guarded by gods and the curses of those who dared to touch it. In 1743, after a fierce battle with the royal fleet, Captain Mackenzie and his crew chose this island as a refuge. Before his death, the captain buried his wealth in the depths of the cove, uttering a spell that was supposed to protect it, until the arrival of a person with a pure soul and noble intentions.
"Let the sea take me, but let it also guard my gold,"
he said, staring into the endless waters.
"Whoever desires to find my treasures must be prepared to pay for them with their own soul."
Captain Mackenzie's words became prophetic. Since then, many treasure hunters have disappeared without a trace, trying to find the Lost Cove. Legends of the treasure and its guardians passed from generation to generation, turning into a warning for those who were too bold. And now, centuries later, a new group of adventurers has gathered to unravel the mystery of the cove. They did not know what awaited them, but their thirst for discovery and the chance to become part of history were stronger than any warnings. They faced not only natural barriers and oblivion, but also dark secrets that could forever change their lives. The morning sunlight gently broke through the curtains, illuminating Chris's room with warm rays. At the threshold of the day, he felt that this spring day would not be like the others. Descending the stairs, Chris saw Mike in the kitchen and asked in surprise,
"Hey, what are you doing here so early?"
Mike smiled awkwardly.
"Oh, it's a bit awkward. I ran out of bread at home and your mom just invited me over."
Yes, it's easier to come to me than to buy bread."
Chris responded sarcastically, though his smile remained. From the living room came the warm voice of Chris's mom.
"I don't want to hear it, of course. I'm glad you, Mike, came to visit. And a light snack never hurts. You young, healthy boys need to eat and eat."
"Thank you, Mrs. Johnson,"
Mike replied, taking a sip of the aromatic coffee she had poured for him.
"So you didn't forget that today we have a game against school, no? 103?
Chris reminded his friend.
"Of course I remember. I'm always ready for a game, don't worry."
Mike replied, placing his cup on the table. In the kitchen, Mike challenged him.
"Hope you're as prepared to meet Vicky as you are for the game."
Chris blushed but quickly found the strength to reply.
"Well, I just want to make her happy on her birthday."
Mike smirked, teasing his friend.
"With the same diligence as you choose a hockey stick, you chose the gift. It must be something special, considering who she is and who her father is."
"Yes, I hope she appreciates it. Maybe if I'm lucky, she'll invite me to her evening."
Chris replied, softly smiling.
"Just don't be late, Romeo. And remember, the party is not an ice rink."
Mike joked.
"I'll try to keep my heart from freezing from excitement."
Chris winked, heading up to his room for Vicky's gift. As Chris climbed the stairs, he was still thinking about Vicky. They were about to meet soon, and although he had known her all his life, today felt special. The morning in the Williams household was as lively as any other day, but this morning was special for Vicky. She was celebrating her 19th birthday. Her room, decorated in the latest fashion, was filled with soft light filtering through panoramic windows. On the table lay a book about famous explorers and adventurers, a gift from her grandfather on her last birthday. This book had become a symbol of freedom and adventurism for her, traits so unlike her father's desire to control every step of her life. The sound of knocking at the door pulled Vicky from her reverie. She glided to the mirror, quickly checked her reflection, and adjusted her hair before heading downstairs.
"Happy birthday, my dear,"
exclaimed her father, Ben Williams, greeting her at the foot of the stairs with warm hugs.
"I hope you spend this day just as you wish."
"Thank you, Dad."
Vicky smiled, but a hint of disappointment flickered in her eyes.
"I really wish I could, spend it a bit differently."
Ben looked at her with some concern.
"I know you dream of adventures like your grandfather, but the world isn't as safe as it seems in books. I just want to protect you."
"I know, Dad. But I can't hide behind the walls of our home forever. Granddad used to say that real life begins where your comfort zone ends."
"He was a great man."
Ben agreed.
"But very risky. Not all his stories ended well."
Vicky approached the window, gazing out at the city sprawling before her.
"Maybe, but every story he lived was worth experiencing."
The mood in the house grew tenser as the conversation turned to Vicky's future. Ben wanted a career for her that would ensure her safety and stability, while she dreamed of the freedom and adventures that could change her life.
Dad, please try to understand.
She said softly, turning to face him.
I want to make my own choices. I want to seek, discover, leave as Granddad did.
Ben nodded, though reluctantly accepting her words.
All right, Vicky. Today's your day, and we will celebrate it. But let's talk about this later, okay?
Vicky smiled, sensing a small victory, but deep down she knew their conversation was far from over. Today promised to be filled with laughter and joy, but the future still held unresolved questions and hidden dreams. Vicky was tying her sneakers when her father peeked into her room.
What are your plans for today, Vicky?
He asked, leaning on the door frame.
Our school is playing against the 103rd. The principal said everyone should be there, so first we're going to the match, and then to a cafe.
She replied, not looking up from her shoelaces.
I could call the principal, tell him you and your friends won't make it. He certainly won't refuse me.
Ben offered, trying to mask his concern with a joking tone.
Dad, don't start. It's my school, and I want to support it. We're playing for a spot in the playoffs.
Vicky looked up, determination in her eyes.
All right, daughter, go ahead. I'll be waiting for you tonight.
Ben smiled, yielding to his daughter's independence.
Okay, Dad. Love you, eh?
Vicky slung her bag over her shoulder and quickly kissed her father on the cheek, already anticipating the excitement of the day ahead. The sun was high in the sky when Vicky and her friends gathered at the entrance to the sports complex. Joyful chatter and laughter filled the air, and friends hugged Vicky one by one, loudly wishing her a happy birthday. Colorful balloons and festive garlands added to the atmosphere of fun.
Vicky,
She heard a hesitant and timid voice from behind. Turning around, she saw Chris, who awkwardly held a package in his hands.
bye thee. Well, this is for you.
He said, extending the gift. Vicky took the package with surprise but did not open it immediately.
Oh, thank you so much, but we're not acquainted, are we?
She asked, puzzled. One of Vicky's friends interjected.
What are you saying? That's our forward. How could you not recognize him?
Oh, right. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I'm just used to seeing you in a helmet and with a hockey stick, not in a shirt. Do you always dress up for every game, or God forbid, is this in honor of my birthday?
Vicky laughed, and her friends joined in. Chris felt embarrassed and decided to leave quickly.
Yes,
He said, trying to hide his emotions.
just a big game. Got serious.
Vicky sensed that her joke had touched and hurt the boy. Suddenly, she touched his shoulder.
Sorry, please, that was a silly joke. Can I see what's in the package?
Yes,
Said Chris, not knowing where to look. He hadn't expected her to open the gift in front of everyone and was ready to sink through the floor if she didn't like it. She carefully opened the package, and inside was something truly special. Chris, being a very thoughtful and romantic guy, had spent a long time preparing and choosing a gift for a girl who had everything. He tried to pick just the right thing that would perfectly suit her, and judging by the smile spreading across Vicky's face, he hit the mark. The package contained a vintage book on the history of seafaring and cartography. Published at the turn of the 19th and 20th centuries, it contained rare maps and stories of sunken ships and forgotten treasures. The cover was made of old leather with embossed gold patterns, and the pages were slightly darkened with age, but this only added to their charm. An old postcard with a picture of an ancient sailboat was glued to the first page of the book, and Chris had written a birthday greeting in his own handwriting, finishing with the words.
may each page lead you to new discoveries.
Chris had found it at a flea market, but was unaware of just how rare the book was. Vicky gently ran her fingers over the smooth leather of the cover, her eyes sparkling with surprise and admiration.
This is incredible, Chris. How did you know? I've always dreamed of such a book.
Her voice trembled with excitement, and she looked up at him sincerely. Chris, still feeling awkward from the earlier moment, smiled.
I noticed how you always read books about adventures and old sea voyages in the school library. Thought this would be perfect.
She looked at the book again, flipping through pages that featured images of ancient ships and maps of uncharted islands.
This really is perfect.
She repeated, her smile widening, and a gleam of adventure appeared in her eyes.
You really surprised me, Chris.
The moment became even warmer when Vicky lifted the book, pressed it to her chest, and hugged Chris in gratitude.
Thank you, this really means a lot to me.
As Vicky hugged Chris, her friends exchanged glances full of bewilderment and hidden disdain. They had not expected such a warm display from Vicky towards a guy who seemed unworthy of her attention. They clapped distantly, more out of politeness than genuine delight.
Thank you.
Vicky said, releasing Chris and sensing the tension from her friend's reaction.
It truly is a wonderful gift.
Chris, catching their looks, felt even more uncomfortable.
I need to warm up before the game,
he said, trying to maintain his dignity in the face of obvious disapproval. Vicky briefly held onto Chris's hand.
Wait, if you guys win today, that would be the perfect reason for you to join us. We could celebrate both my birthday and our school's victory together.
She smiled, turning to her friends.
What do you agree, guys?
Although reluctantly, her friends nodded in agreement. Vicky turned back to Chris, whose face was illuminated by the evening light.
And you know what? Since you're the striker, let's make a bet. If you score a goal today, your super prize will be to walk me home. How about it? Are you in?
A spark lit up in Chris's eyes. He nodded, feeling a surge of excitement and anticipation.
Yes, that sounds like a great plan now,
he said, already imagining how the evening could turn into something special.
Great, then I'll see you after the game. And good luck.
Vicky smiled at him genuinely, instantly dispelling any of his doubts and nervousness. Encouraged by her words, Chris turned and walked to the locker room, his steps light and confident. Today he was playing not just for his team, but for something much more. The atmosphere in the locker room was tense. Chris, still feeling slight vibrations from his encounter with Vicky, found Mike already pulling on his protective gear.
How's it? Impressed her with your gift?
Mike asked with a smirk, tying his skate laces.
Yeah, I didn't expect her to react like that. I hope it's a good sign,
Chris replied, trying to hide his nervousness.
Focus on the game, bro. We need to win today and forget about Vicky for a couple of hours,
Mike said, patting him on the shoulder. When Chris and Mike's team took to the ice, the hall filled with deafening cheers. The air was thick with anticipation, and every player felt the excitement of the impending struggle. Chris, finally noticing Vicky among the spectators, caught her gaze and waved back, giving him extra strength. The game started at a fast pace, with both teams displaying excellent technique and a desire to win. The sound of skates scraping against the ice mixed with the screams of the fans. Mike was the first to break through the opponent's defense powerfully and take a shot. The puck whistled off his stick, flew past the goalie, and slammed into the net. His first goal unleashed a storm of applause. The opponent quickly responded with their own attack. For the next 10 minutes, they maintained the initiative, aggressively attacking and creating sharp moments at Chris and Mike's goal. The goalie saved the team several times from a sure goal, deflecting several difficult shots. By the end of the first period, the tension had peaked. Chris, capitalizing on an opponent defender's mistake, intercepted the puck and started a quick offensive. He confidently outplayed two players, paused to pick his moment, and precisely sent the puck into the far corner of the net. His second goal caused the spectators to leap from their seats. The third period was filled with strategic maneuvers by both teams. The game intensified, hits became more frequent, and every move mattered. Chris again made his mark at the end of the game, using confusion in the opponent's ranks to make the decisive shot. The puck, like a bullet, whistled past the goalie, his third goal, and the ultimate advantage. When the referee announced the end of the game, the stadium exploded with applause. Chris and Mike's team hugged on the ice, celebrating a well-deserved victory. Chris, tired but happy, looked for Vicky. She was clapping, her eyes glowing with pride and admiration, and her smile never left her face. He waved at her, and she waved back. This moment symbolized not only a sports victory, but also a personal achievement for him. After the tense and emotional game, Vicky approached Chris, radiant with joy and excitement.
Congratulations on the win, and it looks like you won our bet too,
she said with a smile, her eyes twinkling with happiness.
Is he your brother?
She asked, pointing at Mike.
Well, almost just from another mother.
Chris laughed.
We've been together since childhood.
Oh, great. Then let's celebrate all this together,
Vicky suggested. Her friends nearby rolled their eyes, clearly not wanting to share the evening with hockey players from another social group. But Mike, always direct and candid, noticed their reaction.
Do you have a problem with that?
He asked one of them, raising an eyebrow slightly.
No, today is my birthday and I invite who I want, right?
Vicky intervened, smiling but with a firm tone in her voice.
Yes, of course, darling.
Her friends quickly agreed, understanding that it was pointless to argue. Thus, the whole group headed to a nearby cafe. The evening passed in cheerful and relaxed conversation. Sure, there were minor clashes between Mike and Vicky's friends, but the overall atmosphere was friendly and joyful. Vicky and Chris talked a lot, exchanging impressions about the match, as well as jokes and laughter. As the party gradually came to an end, Chris felt it was time to wrap up the evening.
Mike, go ahead, I'll catch up,
he said, winking at his friend. After Mike left, Chris turned to Vicky.
May I walk you home?
His voice was gentle, but there was nothing surprising about his offer, considering their bet. Vicky smiled, reminding him of their agreement.
Of course, it was part of our bet, right?
She replied with a light laugh. As they approached Vicky's house, the evening was nearly over. At the doorstep, they paused, and Chris, feeling a bit uncertain after such an evening, was about to say goodbye when Vicky suddenly turned to him.
Thank you for an incredible evening, Chris,
she said in a soft voice. Her eyes sparkled in the street lighting, and before Chris could respond, she gently kissed his cheek.
and for the gift. It's really special.
Chris, slightly embarrassed but clearly pleased, smiled back.
I'm glad you liked it.
He said, looking into her eyes. With that gentle farewell, they exchanged final smiles, and Vicky entered her home. Chris stood on the doorstep for a few more moments, savoring the sweetness of her kiss on his cheek, before slowly walking away, mentally replaying the events of that magical evening. Vicky sat at the table where her parents were already waiting. She felt as if she was floating above the ground, so filled were her thoughts with memories of the evening. Ben Williams, serious and always thinking about business, began to remind her of the importance of her career in banking and how crucial it was to inherit the family business. But her mother gently intervened.
Dear, let's not today. Let Vicky decide when she's ready. We will support whatever decision you make, sweetheart,
she said, smiling at her daughter. After dinner, still full of emotions, Vicky went up to her room. She sat on the bed and slowly pulled out the book Chris had given her. Flipping through the pages, she delved into the world of ancient maps and stories about sunken treasures. One of the pages mentioned Captain Edward and his legendary treasures. Vicky was intrigued by the detail and exclusiveness of the information. She took her laptop and started searching for information about the book and the mentioned research. Her search led her to discover that the book was indeed a scholarly work by a well-known 19th century explorer who had devoted a significant part of his life to searching for lost maritime treasures. Some pages of the book contained encoded messages and maps, which were supposed to indicate the location of the forgotten treasure. Realizing that she might hold the key to one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in history was exhilarating for Vicky. Plans for a possible adventure that could radically change her life began to form in her mind. Losing track of time, Vicky turned page after page, captivated by every word, every drawing of ancient ships and mysterious symbols. The curves and inscriptions on the map seemed almost mystical to her, and the more she learned, the more she was drawn into this forgotten world. The internet told her the story of the explorer's unfortunate fate, who had tried to unravel the mystery of Captain Edward Mackenzie's treasure alone. It was said that his ship was found with not a single soul aboard, and all records and maps that could have revealed the location of the treasure disappeared without a trace. The explorer's family decided to close the project, fearing others might meet his tragic fate. Sitting in her room under the dim light of a desk lamp, Vicky wondered whether she should try to finish what the scientist had started. The thought that she could be part of history and uncover one of the great maritime mysteries was both terrifying and incredibly exciting. She imagined herself following in the footsteps of the old cartographer, guided by the mysterious clues from his book. That night, Vicky didn't close her eyes. Her mind was filled with maps, notes, and possibilities. By morning, she knew her decision was made. Vicky was ready to meet the dawn, not just as the daughter of a well-known banker, but as an adventurer ready to unravel the secrets hidden for centuries beneath the waves of the seas. The next morning, just as dawn painted the sky in pale blue hues, Vicky met Chris at the school entrance. She couldn't wait to share her discovery with him. Chris, still not fully awake, greeted her with a smile.
What happened, Vicky? You look like you found treasure,
he said, noticing her excited state.
Not just any treasure.
Vicky quickly replied, her eyes sparkling with excitement.
I think I've found something much more significant. This could be a great adventure for us.
Her voice trembled with delight. Chris looked at her in amazement.
And what do you want to do?
He asked cautiously.
Unravel this mystery, Chris. Can you imagine what might await us? This is our chance for a real adventure, not just stories from books.
Vicky energetically began to persuade him. Chris frowned, weighing the potential risks and his doubts.
But we're just students. We don't have the money to travel the world in search of treasures.
Don't forget who I am, Chris. My parents love to spoil me and I will take care of all financial matters.
Yeah, but school and what to tell my mom?
Chris didn't finish his sentence as Mike's voice came from behind.
Stop whining. Who's the girl here? I'll say you're staying over at my place, and you tell my parents I stayed at yours. We've done it a million times. And as for school, I doubt anyone will mind us missing a few days after what we did yesterday with school 103,
said Mike.
How long have you been standing there?
Chris asked.
Well, long enough, by the way, Vicky, I'm in. I hope you didn't think you could go on this journey with him and without me.
Vicky winked at Chris.
See, even Mike is with us.
Chris sighed, realizing it was impossible to resist their enthusiasm and determination.
All right, I'm in. Looks like this is going to be the biggest adventure of our lives.
Their eyes met, and in that look, something more than just friendship was born, a shared goal and an understanding that bound them much stronger than any words could express. If you liked the story, subscribe and like to hear the next part, and many other Nightmare Chronicles.